Hello and welcome to episode 41 of the Kingfisher Knits podcast. My name is Madeleine and I'm talking to you from my home in Memphis, Tennessee, where I live with my husband and our 3 young children. It has been an incredibly long time since I last recorded a podcast because it is now 2020, if you can believe it. I really was super hopeful, totally sure that I would get to record something before Christmas. But things conspired, there was not a lot of free time, and kids were ill in a, classic cyclical manner when you've got a bunch of children, apparently. We've learned this. And there just hasn't been the time. I'm disappointed about that, but hey, it's happened, it's gone, the time. The time has flown away, 2019 is gone, and we are in a new decade. If you've come back to watch me again, I'm really, really appreciative. Thank you so very much for biding with me. And if you're new and this is the first time that you're checking me out, thank you so much. I hope you like what you see and you stay along for some more episodes or go back and watch some previous ones. By all means, click like and subscribe. And if this is not your cup of tea, I hope you find something that is. There are an awful lot of knitting podcasts out there. I will admit that this is the second time that I'm recording this beginning portion, not because of rustiness, which of course I do feel, but because I've already had some crashing going on here. So I really hope that we will get through, because I do not have a ton of time to be able to sit and keep trying to record all day long. Okay. I have no real announcements to make. I would really like to get some kind of knit along, or I guess revive a bit the Ravelry group. Take this time quickly to say that all the links of where you can find me on Instagram, my website, Ravelry, etc. are all down below, immediately down below this video on YouTube in the description box. You also find links to my knitting patterns, which I sell on Ravelry. I am a knitting pattern designer and tech editor some of my time when I'm not doing other things. And I also have the show notes, so everything I talk about, I make an effort to link it at least to a project page or whatever, so you can find all the relevant information. If you ever have further questions, by all means, pop a question in the comments down below. I said I would love to do a knit along or something, again, revive the Ravelry group a little bit. But in general, just have some project going along with you guys. There's quite a few followers out there now, subscribers, let's say, which I'm really grateful for, and I like to engage with that as much as possible. So if anyone has any ideas, I wouldn't be looking to do something for like a specific pattern or a specific designer really, but if there's a sort of a field of patterns, or a type of a technique, or something to tie in, or something that you're keen to try, by all means let me know, and perhaps if by next time I get to record nothing has been said, I will see what's grasping me, and we'll go with that. I have a few little FOs to show, but I'm going to start with whips as ever, and first I'm going to start with the whip, which is a new cast on. I'm pretty sure I hadn't cast this on. I did actually sort of tag this myself as a cast on in the Blame Dunderknit knit along. Dunderknit is also known as Caroline. She's Dunderknit on Instagram, and she has the Knitting Vicariously podcast here over on YouTube. She's a lot of fun, and she has this sort of knit along every year. I mean, it's the second annual Blame Dunderknit knit along. Make along. I think you're also allowed to crochet and make whatever, and the idea is that you cast on with abandon whatever it is that you maybe have been wanting to cast on and always made excuses not to. And so I'm using this Vidilana yarn from KNITCRATE. This came to me at some point last year in autumn, and it's my favourite base I think I've ever received from KNITCRATE, and it is 100% fine Peruvian Highland wool non-superwash. It is a sport weight yarn listed here. It is 300 meters for 100 grams. I'm using the colourway Tassel, which is this gorgeous reddish purple. It's really displaying very well there on the camera. It is predominantly purple, but you see these burgundy tones there. It's beautifully heathered, and you can see there also it's a chainette yarn. So really the circumference of this yarn, I would say it's definitely not a sport weight. It's more of a DK to worsted. but I guess they've maybe called it a sport weight because of the yardage that you're getting, but really it's just because it's incredibly light. You're getting, although it's a thicker yarn, you're getting a lot more meters for your grams of wool. Anyway, it's absolutely gorgeous. I was squishing it to death the moment I opened the KnitCrate boxes. So yeah, full disclosure, I was sent this yarn because I receive KnitCrate's affiliate KnitCrates every month. So I did not pay for this yarn, but I absolutely love it. So I have cast on the Solverve shawl. This is a pattern by Ellie of Skandia. It was part of her some Scandinavian summer collection, which was 4 patterns that she released last summer, one of which was a shawl. It is a shawl that is knit from tip to tip, so you start at a small tip here, excuse me, increase for a bit, knit sort of straight for a while, and then decrease for the other end. And she had knit it, I believe, with a sport to DK weight yarn, or one of those yarns which somewhere between fingering and DK, woolen spun on a big needle, a 6mm needle. It is a little tricky with this lighting to show it off particularly well, but I'm going to try. So you started off here, increasing both the garter and the lace up to here. Then there's a part where you're not increasing the lace anymore, but you're still increasing the body down to where that progress keeper was, and then I've been working straight since then. So if I put my head here, you can see the lace a bit better there. It probably will not end up as big as Ellie's one because I have less yarn and I'm using a smaller needle. It's what I had available to me, but I will still block this quite heavily, and it should still be warm because it's very lightweight, but it's a woolen spun style yarn. I wouldn't say I know exactly how this yarn was spun. It would have been commercially produced, but the result at the end, because of this chainette construction, is somewhat like a woolen spun, traps a lot of air, very squishy, with a nice halo. I'm not sure we're getting the halo there. No, bit of it. I'm using 5mm needles just because I couldn't find 6mm. These are my higher set. These are the sharps. I do have some of the steel tips as well, which are actually my preference. But in the 5mm, I think I only have sharps. I don't have any higher needles which are larger than this because I had the small set. So they have different cable screw-on sizes and different, the gauge, I'd say, of the screw end of the tips are different from this size up. This is the end of the small set, and then for the sizes, I think 5.5 upwards is the large set. I have a couple of their sock sizes, which will be like the mini cable, but I don't have anything bigger. I have some Knit Pros interchangeables in the 6mm, but I couldn't find them. Anyway, I've been enjoying working on this. I haven't been really clipping along at a pace or anything, but I like that the rows aren't too long. I do quite like end-to-end shawl constructions and not ending up with huge rows. Sometimes it's worth it because of the shapes and the patterns that you can achieve, and I do enjoy that. I have knit them, but I do prefer not having rows be absolutely enormous. So I'm fairly sure I'll be showing that to you again as a whip at some point, because I don't think I'm going to get through it super quickly. I shall put it back in its home. And the other whip that I was going to show you, I'm somewhat embarrassed by, because I was sure that I would have this finished by Christmas, not because I intended it to be a gift for anybody. I'm knitting it specifically for my son, my middle son, but I just thought it would be done by Christmas, and it's not. So this is the Anti-Sèche pullover. It is a pattern by, her name is Jessica. She is French. She is on Instagram as Kazje Knits. I shall link it all down below. I will link to my project page where it links to the pattern page and you can see who the designer was. She's has some really lovely patterns, not only for children, but I have really liked some of the patterns she's come up with for children. This has a fun top collar, which is slightly raised, not as raised as this, because it will end up being folded over like this, and there will be an I-cord tie in the contrast color, which will be pulled through that, but it will still have a somewhat, a raised neck effect. It has raglan shaping. It has this very fun pattern, which ends up being pretty subtle in the colours that I'm using, although I have to say, while this camera typically picks up more contrast than you see with your naked eye, in this case it is picking up less contrast between these colours and this pattern than you manage to see with your eyes. Anyway, and I have finished the ribbing. I just have to bind it off, and I wanted to do a sewn bind off. I wanted to do the Italian bind off, which is my preferred tubular bind off. I find it much easier to do than the classic tubular bind off, because that bind off is also sewn bind off. In the end, you end up Kitchenering together stitches, but that has more steps, more fuss, set up rows and sliding stitches onto different needles. Whereas the Italian bind off, you finish knitting your rib, you break your yarn with enough to do the sewn bind off, and then you proceed with that. So I find it much, much easier to work. I have left this like this because I intend to do a tutorial on the Italian bind off. I have intended to do that for, well, 2 years now. It hasn't happened. I'm not quite sure why I thought that I was going to get around to doing it anytime soon. I've never filmed a tutorial since we've lived here, and I don't really have a setup for it. And anyway, that was the reason that initially I put it down for a bit, and then there was no time to do anything. Anyway, I will just go ahead and do it when I have the time, forgetting about the tutorial for now, apologies. And whenever it comes time that I can make a tutorial, I will do so, making it, with a swatch, not leaving something on hold just for that. It's not a very productive way for me to get things done. Oh, I didn't mention the yarn. The yarn, which I will mention because it's been a while since I recorded, was sent to me as a gift. I mean, I promised to pay her back in kind with yarn at some point, and we'll sort that out. But by my lovely friend Shauna Doyle, who is Shauna Knits on Instagram, and she has the Bean and Bam hand-dyed yarn company on Etsy, yarn shop. And this was yarn that she used in her breathing space sweater, which was gorgeous. That's a design by Vera Valmachi. And the main colour, which I showed you, is Wandering Wool. It is the High Peak sock, which is 80-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon in the Neptune colourway. And the contrast is a hand-dyed yarn from Shauna, but it is a one-of-a-kind, so it's not one I think that she has in her Etsy shop. I'm sure if you were to contact her and said you wanted something just like this, she would be able to reproduce it, because she also has knit. She dyed it, and I'm sure she could come up with something similar. It's a really, really lovely steely blue with blue speckles. So those are my whips for now. There are a couple of other things somewhere floating around, but not really in a state of anything that I've worked on anytime recently, so best left, I think, for now. On to finished objects. And the first one that I would like to show to you is the one that I am wearing. This is what I was working on the last time I spoke to you. This is my Madewell cardigan. It is a design by Jorge Locatelli. One of her designs that's been out for several years. It's been made by a lot of people. It is a pretty classic, relaxed, top-down raglan cardigan. I have currently got it fully open fronted, although in the design it does have you put a single button on, which you make a loophole for, just so you can close it like that. I do intend to do that. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I feel like that I'll be able to still wear it open, but just, close it up if I really wanted to over something. And one thing I have not done is the pattern has elbow patches, which are pretty funky, but not really my style. So I haven't done those. Should I ever wear holes in my elbows on this garment, I will make something and try and do it probably the way that Jorge had designed, because that was the original idea. So if I were to make patches, I would make them like Jorge did with this. She has these like beautiful linen stitch patches to use up odds and ends of favourite yarn, and then you sew those on. I have pretty much knit it to pattern apart from that modification. I think that also the collar is a little less deep, only by maybe 4 or 5 rows. I did that because I was concerned about yarn, running out of yarn. I had 3 skeins of yarn. I'll talk about the yarn in a moment. And for my size, this was one of Jorge's older patterns where she didn't say the yardage, she just said the number of skeins of the yarn that she used. So for her size, for the size that I was making, which is the medium size, it was listed 4 skeins of this given yarn, which was similar in put up to the yarn I used. I had 3, but I noticed that several sizes above mine still needed 4 skeins, and the size immediately below mine needed 3. And I checked out some project pages for actual yardage used, and while there were people who knit the medium and used more than 3 skeins, there were a fair few people which had just used 3 skeins. And in the end I even had some leftovers which I also already used in another little project. So it was fine, but what I did was I knit the body. I decided to pick up and knit the collar before the sleeves, thinking I definitely need a collar on this garment, because you can see where the garment finishes, it wouldn't be remotely deep enough. It's designed to have a decent collar, and then the sleeves will be as long as they can be. In the end, I had enough yarn. I could have made the full length sleeves and still had the collar as deep as it was supposed to be, but I'm fine with it. The yarn is Tough Love Sock from SweetGeorgia. It is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon. It's a very round yarn. It's a slightly heavier fingering weight compared to classic sock yarns for sure. And this is the colourway Lupine. I was sent this yarn as part of my welcome package for becoming a brand ambassador for SweetGeorgia when I was selected, so I'm very grateful to them for that, and I think I've done the yarn justice by knitting it into this gorgeous garment, which I absolutely love. It's a beautiful blurple. It's definitely a colour that I like to wear a lot, and I alternated skeins throughout, which was the right thing to do. This is a very tonal yarn, and while there might not have been a very visible line where you switched or what have you, maybe could have blended in the lines, you might have got some kind of flashing, or it's not a variegated yarn, so I don't think you'd get pronounced pooling, but you probably would see regions where you have, the lighter colours pooling together. It is a beautifully soft yarn. It's ridiculously soft. I have not pulled off any pills yet. It has started to fuzz up slightly, which I do expect for any woolen garments, but certainly superwash soft fibres like merino, you do get fuzzing up. You will get some pilling probably under the underarm. For me, I've never had, I think only one thing I've ever made really was pilling to an extent that I was like, it was kind of getting on my nerves. Everything else, even if it pilled a lot, if I took care of it, I gleaned it or shaved it, it would pill a little bit less, I would glean it and shave it, and then it would generally stop pilling. So I think that's something to consider when you're making garments, out of these yarns. You probably is going to be some garment upkeep, but I think some people start seeing stuff pilling and feel really let down by that. And in my experience, if you take care to remove those pills, they eventually stop coming. In my experience, I've never gleaned something more than a couple of times. So, not saying that I've knit with all of the yarns out there. And cashmere probably can be different. The problem with cashmere is it matters an awful lot where the quality of the fibre and where it's come from. Cashmere is already a short staple fibre, and a lot of the cheaper cashmere out there is not made with full length cashmere, but the odds and ends and little very short fibres, and those are going to pill a lot. So that is my major FO, which I'm super, super happy about and have been wearing an awful lot. And now on to some smaller finished objects that I have managed to make since I last saw you. There were a couple of little tiny baby knits which I knit to add to a couple of things which I'd already shown you and sent them off to a newly arrived baby. So I haven't got those to show you, but one of them was a pair of newborn baby socks, and I have since made another pair using my leftovers from this project. So this is the Perfect Newborn Sock pattern on Ravelry. It is a free pattern by Tabby Gandy. You might know her as one half of the Hey Sister podcast. There was also the Hey Sister yarn company, but that has now closed. But they still have a podcast, and they are absolutely adorable. There are 2 options in the pattern. You can make a plain ribbed sock, or there is like a little cable pattern to make down the leg. I haven't blocked these or anything, and my ribbing is pretty messy at times, so it looks a bit wibbly wobbly, but it was so cute to make. And this one is made with a little heel flap and gusset, which I just think is so cute. And I think they, realistically, heel flaps and gussets stay on best. and also making it ribbed is just increasing the chances that this little sock is actually going to stay on the foot of the baby. So for now, these will just go into a gift pile, but I already have an idea where they'll be ending up. And they're just beautiful, lovely and squishy, and I think, not that I particularly care, but it is a very pretty unisex colour as well. So those will be going to a small baby when a small baby arrives. Then I knit 3 hats, one for each of my children. I'm in the same yarn as I showed you before, same base. So this is the Vidilana, did I say what the base was called? I think it's called Ascendance, that fine Peruvian wool superwash called Sport Weight, not quite Sport Weight, yarn from KNITCRATE. They actually sent me 2 crates that month, bizarrely. So I got the tassel colourway, and I also got this colourway, which is Ancient Ruins, and I held it double, which is definitely an Aran weight border. I mean, it's not a chunky, but it's a good thick Aran weight holding it double. And I knit a beloved hat for my baby. He is now 11 months old. He had a smaller beloved when he was a newborn. We then had summer here in Memphis, where you absolutely do not need a wool hat, but now again he did need one. I'm super happy with it. It's super squishy and gorgeous. Yes, it is a Peruvian, it's not a merino wool. It is woolen, as I said, with that woolen spun feel, and it is non-superwash, but it is absolutely baby soft enough. This has, I mean, for me, almost 0 prickle. It is not quite a merino, but I'm not one for thinking that babies can only wear merino or cotton and acrylic. So, very happy. You know by now, if you watched my channel, I like the beloved hat for babies. I think you can't really beat it. I know there are other bottom patterns out there which will have an almost identical shape in the end, and therefore will be just as good. Just really love this one, how you knit it all in one piece from tip all the way up to tip, and it's done. All the edging, I love the look of the garter next to the I-cord edging that you get. It's a genius pattern. It's a Tin Can Knits pattern. It's sized from newborn all the way up to adult male. It is a paid for pattern. It's not one of their free ones, but it's worth it. I've made several so far and intend to keep making them. It's written for DK weight, DK worsted, although in the pattern they have samples show samples knit with that weighted yarn, but also with fingering weight yarn held double, and those should all work for that gauge. In the end, this gauge here, it's a bit fatter of a gauge, so I didn't knit this exactly pattern for the baby size. Then I knit 2 other hats, which were also part of the indie gift along, which was going on from November all the way through to the end of December. It's a wonderful event which goes on in Ravelry every in the run up to Christmas or the run up to the end of the year, every year on Ravelry. I've taken part as a designer for the last 2 or 3 years now. So it's over now, but you can look out for it in the future if you hadn't heard about it. It's called the GAL, or the Indie Gift Along. It's a CAL, knitting and crochet along, out there with the idea to promote indie designers. They'll have their patterns on sale for 25% off for a week period at the beginning of the GAL, which is in November. And then the idea is you can also take part to win prizes by knitting any of those designers' patterns, not just the ones that were on sale, as gifts for people for Christmas or for yourself. They don't have to be gifts, but in that month, in that period of running up to the end of the year. Anyway, I knit 2 hats as part of the GAL. They are both knit out of SweetGeorgia Superwash worsted yarn, which I bought from SweetGeorgia's website. This is the November Rain hat. This is a pattern by Stella Egidi. Stella is an Italian knitwear designer living in Rome. She has absolutely gorgeous patterns, often featuring, not always, but often featuring, always featuring some kind of patterns, I think. She does quite well with gorgeous charted patterns and twisted stitches, and this I made for my daughter. She picked the colour off of SweetGeorgia's website. This is the lemon curd colourway. As I said, it's SweetGeorgia Superwash worsted. I'm just trying to show you this crown because it's gorgeous. So my daughter is very, very happy with this hat. I think it's incredibly pretty, and she's not wrong. And it was a lot of fun to make. It didn't take me long at all. Really great knit. I love twisted stitches. I'd never done 2x2 twisted rib before, and it's incredibly beautiful. It really looks like columns. I couldn't quite get over it when I was first knitting it. I just had to keep stopping and looking at it. The other pattern that I knit was a pattern for my son. This is in the spearmint colourway from SweetGeorgia. This hat looks incredibly small because it's very, very stretchy. I haven't looked up how to pronounce this, but this is I'm going to say the Osceola hat. It is by a pattern by Lynette Graham, who is Knit with Lynette on Instagram. Again, I will link my project page down below where you can go through to see the pattern and the designer. It was a great fun to knit this. I actually found this hard to put down. It's these huge cables and seed stitch in between. Another one with a great crown decrease. I do love a good crown decrease. And yeah, my son chose this colour, spearmint. I did ask him if he was absolutely sure of this colour and absolutely sure of this pattern, and he was. And he has very much enjoyed wearing it. So they both have their winter hats, all three of them have their winter hats. And while it's not permanently freezing cold here in Memphis, it does get pretty cold. So these are definitely needed. Okay, so we go 3 hat FOs. And the final 2 FOs to show you is something a bit weird for me. So I have been seeing dishcloths being knit by Amber, the yarn hoarder, for a while now. It's 2 years that she's done her dishcloth challenge. And I've never had any aspersions against people who knit dishcloths, who enjoy making them, who enjoy gifting them, who enjoy using them. I have knit one a long time ago, basically to use up some cotton that I had that I didn't know what else to do with. Although it was not dishcloth cotton, it was quite nice cotton. I'm not saying that dishcloth cotton isn't, but it costs a lot more than dishcloth cotton. But I had it, I wanted to use it up, and I made a dishcloth. It's maybe because it's not dishcloth cotton, it's pretty heavy, and while I leave it around and the kids have it in the bath and play with it, it doesn't really get used for anything. And it doesn't really seem to work that well. And so I just thought, well, it would be nice to actually try making a dishcloth out of some dishcloth cotton and see if they're any good, or to give as gifts or what have you. And the new year came around and that was it. I wanted to do it. I needed something super simple to work on. I had no plain socks on the needles. I completely forgot to grab my Christmas socks, which I have finished, which are now in the wash, so I wouldn't want to show them to you right now. Anyway, I will show them to you another time because they are beautiful. But anyway, I needed something simple, so I picked up a couple of balls of dishcloth cotton from Hobby Lobby, my first time into Hobby Lobby here. And yeah, just had a bit of fun. So this was the first colour that I used. This is obviously a Christmassy colour. It's called, so this is the Hobbycraft yarn. This is the tag, Crafter's Secret Cotton. So Crafter's Secret, I believe, from being in the store, is Hobby Lobby's own brand of yarn because it was all over the place. Although it doesn't say Hobby Lobby on the ticket, does it? It does. Hobby Lobby, yeah. So, and this is a 2-ounce ball for $2 something. This is the colorway I Love Christmas. And I love it because it's this really vintage Christmas, nice rich vintage Christmas red and green, but also with these little points of where it changes from the white to the green, you have this sort of spearmint color and this really lovely rosy pink. And I have woven in my ends, but I haven't cut them apparently. So yeah, here is my dishcloth. The color is actually softer in person. It doesn't really look particularly nice there, I have to say. I do not like how it's looking on the camera at all. It's not picking up the pink hardly at all. That's better in terms of color representation there. So I had read somewhere, so anyway, I'm using the Grandma's Favorite dishcloth. I will link the pattern. There is the version with and without holes. I did the version without holes because I prefer how that looks. It was a super easy pattern to follow. I now understand why people enjoy making these, because I always thought you're not just casting on and just doing plain knitting, you're increasing and then you're decreasing. I was like, oh, you've got to keep track and remember you're increasing. No, because often when you have patterns like this, you would be increasing, you know, at either end and then have a plain row back, increasing either end. No, this one is genius. you increase at the beginning of every row. Maybe other people knew this. I mean, also knew this without ever seeing this pattern. But you're always increasing at the beginning of every row. So it's easy, easy, easy up until you get to the maximum stitch count. It's a free pattern. Then there are 3 plain rows with no increasing or decreasing. And then you're kind of doing the same, just decreasing at the beginning of every row. So it makes it incredibly simple. There is nothing too much to think about. You're not thinking, oh, am I on the right side or the wrong side? There is no right side, wrong side. You just go. It was a lot of fun to make. I did this one on a 4.5 and I was not super happy. I also thought I would get 2 dishcloths out of 1 ball of yarn. The pattern says 1 dishcloth takes about 1 ounce of yarn, and these are 2 ounce balls. But while I can still make a dishcloth with this and just stop increasing once I've reached half of the yarn, and I probably will do that, this, I can't get another one this size out of it. So anyway, first dishcloth made basically ever, because the other one, as I said. And then the other colour, I picked up 2 colourways, and the other colourway that I picked up was this one. Incredibly fun, and it's called Extra Sprinkles. This I knit on a 4mm needle to the same pattern, so I'm increasing to the same stitch count. And it didn't come out that different, but it is less overly stretchy, so the other one can be stretched a lot more, if you see. So it's similar in size when you just lie it down. Well, no, it is definitely smaller, if you can see there. It's a bit smaller and it's a bit denser, and I prefer the look of it in general. I really, really like this one. This one I want to put into use soon. So I'm going to use these, try and use them a bit before going off and buying another couple of balls. I mean, I will also use these. I might make some just little round ones, like for makeup or what have you, out of the rest of this yarn, and make another smaller dishcloth out of that yarn. But wash them, use them, see if I like them, and even if I don't, but have the urge to still knit some for gifts or what have you. But they served a fantastic purpose when I had no super simple brainless knitting on the needles and I needed it. These did just the job. Really like this one. Okay, those are my projects. I thought it would feel like I had less to show you, but I did have a decent amount to show you in the end. I have not got any super exciting just cast on product. Obviously the Solverve shawl was a new cast on. I have plans to cast on a fading point shawl. I should have maybe grabbed the yarn to show you, but I didn't. Anyway, it is a gradient kit that I bought when I was back in Switzerland from a Swiss hand dyer whose yarn I have worked with in the past. When I knit my Serafina top, if anybody remembers that. But I did want to show you because in the same yarn order where these 2 skeins of SweetGeorgia worsted, superwash worsted arrived, I also purchased 3 skeins of the superwash DK. Why was that so hard to get out my mouth? From SweetGeorgia. I bought 3 skeins which have been wound up but ended up a bit messy of the superwash DK from SweetGeorgia. This is their tag. And I ordered all 3 colours from, all 3 of these colours come from their Autumn Winter 2019 colour palette. And I have ordered these to make the Odyssey shawl by Jochi Locatelli. Yes, I'm knitting a lot of Jochi patterns. I am aware of that. But I'm not apologetic for it because I love them. And clearly there is something with her aesthetic that fits for me, and I'm glad. This is one of Jochi's free patterns. She released it last year in gratitude for all of the people who support her and buy her patterns and follow her. And it's a beautiful shawl design. And it's very generous that it was out there for free. And it's become very popular. You know, extra popular probably because it is free. And it uses 3 different colours of a DK weight yarn, and I very much love a DK weight shawl. So I've wanted to make this ever since she released it, and I downloaded the pattern and added it to my library. And I was just looking for colours. I wanted them to be kind of a fade. I mean, not exactly, but 3 similar colours. I didn't want blocking. It's a beautiful, beautiful, delicate shawl. I will put up a picture of it. Not sure I just said that. But anyway, I bought these 3 colours from that palette, from that collection. There is, this one is Trinket. It is shown pretty well there. It's beautiful, rich. These are all rich, dark, saturated, moody colours. This is Trinket. Then I took Illusion, which you can see is, you know, much more purpley, but has still in it these deep raspberry, maroony, burgundy colours too, as well as some sort of more tealish bits. And the final colour in the trio that I picked up is called Evening. So that's, you know, going cooler, still with elements, definitely with elements of the middle colour and even some burgundy hints in there. So these will be the 3 colours. I haven't decided for sure yet what order they're going to go in. Obviously, so I'm definitely having this one in the middle. I just haven't decided if I'm starting the shawl, so the top of the shawl, with Trinket or with Evening. So whether it's going to be like that or like that. I had even thought to do it that way, to switch up those two, because you do still have aspects of all 3, you know, all the colours everywhere, let's say. But I think I'm going to stick with this. Apologies that these are incredibly messy cakes of yarn, but hey, that's life. Anyway, they're just absolutely beautiful. I think I'm leaning towards, this way, starting with this at the top, but we'll see. So I would like to cast it on at some point. Whether it'll happen before or after the fading point, I don't know. I wound up the yarn almost as soon as I got it. It was so beautiful. I wanted it wound up and ready to go. And then I cast on the Solverve shawl. And I can't remember what the exact reason for that was. I wanted to make that, obviously, but why I went with that order, I don't remember. But I mean, this is one of those shawls which is going to end up with very long rows. That's true. But I don't think that was what put me off. Anyway, they're all there. They're all in my mind. They're all happening. There will also be garments. I have gone to visit my stash. We have it in a storage unit, along with most of our belongings at the moment. So I have dug out some stash, which is why I can make the fading point that I want to make. And I've also dug out some stash for a garment that I've been planning to make. So those things will be happening. I think I was feeling a little break from garments. Not because I don't enjoy knitting on them. I have a fair few that I want to make, and I have the yarn for. So I just want to make those ones. And I think at the moment I wasn't in the state of mind to particularly to swatch and start. Like if I had a garment on the needles, I would be happily knitting away on it. But to get going sometimes takes a little bit, It's important to pick your size right and swatch and get everything right and set it up and not make too many mistakes at the beginning. So I just wasn't at that point yet. So I wanted something else, quicker and easier to get onto the needles and get some progress going. Hence the Solverve shawl and the hats for the kids and the dishcloths. So they served perfectly well to keep me going. That is everything that I have to show and share with you today. I really hope that you're well and that you are embracing this new year, this new decade. I hope that it brings peace, joy and happiness to you all, and I hope that you can also use it to bring whatever you can in terms of peace, joy and happiness to others. That's how I try and live my life, and I hope that everyone else just when they can does what they can for other people. If you have someone who's in need, if you know someone who could do with just someone to speak to, whatever it is, then I hope that we can all find time for each other. And yeah, I will be back with you when I'm back with you. Maybe it's the best thing to say. And wishing you all a very, very happy 2020. Bye.